Barry Henthorn and Gene Langmesser. Welcome to Buffalo Fireside Chats.
Hello, glad to be here very much.
It's great to have you guys here, and I look forward to all the information that you're going to share with us, and share to our reviewers and shareholders and potential shareholders. You guys were brought to my attention by subscriber Barry the Great. He's been a supporter of the channel for a long time, so shout out to you, Barry the Great, and thanks for setting this up. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Henthorn. In 2015, you were named the most innovative public company leader to watch in Forbes magazine and have sat on advisory boards for U.S. corporations in industries including aerospace, law, accounting, international trade, espresso machine manufacturing, and travel. You are involved in a lot. Tell us about your journey in the business world and what ultimately led you to be CEO for ticker VAPR.
Certainly. I guess, wow. I would go, I hate to go back to the beginning, but I guess I'd go back to the beginning in the sense that, I started my first company when I was 12 years old. It was a landscaping company, and a little known fact, at least to me, was you can't work in the state of Washington under the age of 16, even with parental consent. But there's nothing that precludes you from being the majority shareholder or even an officer of a corporation. So fortunately for me, my father had a lot of business background, and he understood those things. So he helped. Obviously, he had to sign the legal documents and so forth. But he helped us, helped me form that company. And we started with a tennis club and some banks and some other people, one of the houses done and so forth. And it grew, and it grew pretty quickly, frankly, to the point where it was getting in the way of my schoolwork and my sports and other studies and so forth. But I literally had employees at the at the age of 12, 13, 14 years old. And so I ended up selling that business and focusing on, the studies and so forth. But I always loved cars, always loved them. Bought the first car when I was 12, 56 Chevy two-door. Loved that. Fixed it up. My sister drove it in high school before I could drive. Bought a 69 Firebird convertible. That was the car I actually drove when I turned 16. And through that process, also created a stereo company called Sound Investments, which we liked the name, but it basically let me buy aftermarket stereos and put them in my car and other people's cars and customers' cars. So I got to play around with a lot of cars, take them apart, see what was inside. And I just really liked that and loved that. And my business partner and I sold that when we got out of high school, and we both went off to college, where I later developed a switching technology that made phone calls free to make in a certain region, eventually worldwide. Left college to run that company. That was the first public company that I was ever involved in. Went public in the 90s, and so I got a taste of that side of the business, the good and the bad of it, frankly. Obviously, it's a double-edged sword, but kind of continued to grow. And then, having had multiple cars over that period of time, mostly because it's just my interest in them, when the ability to be able to have your own company producing brand new vehicles on the road, not retrofits, not a restored car, but a brand new car sold to the public. When the government allowed us to be able to do that, I jumped right at it. I mean, it's a dream come true. And so all the background that I've had in both the private and public side of things and creating companies and products and bringing them to market, this is kind of the culmination of all that. And there's nothing that I'd rather be spending my time doing on a day-to-day basis. When I wake up every day, and sure, it's hard, but it's hard in a good way. So that's, I guess, how I ended up here.
That's awesome. Obviously, you're very, very passionate. So congratulations on where you are at now and being able to live out the dream. And tell us a little bit about the team behind you, your board members, and the overall value that they bring to the table.
Some deals just get momentum. And fortunately for us early on, we were able to find Gene. And once Gene understood the opportunity that was here, he's like, wait a second, this is incredible. And, Gene's obviously legendary in the automotive business. His name speaks for itself, and, he doesn't require any introduction anywhere in the automotive world. But Gene also brings with him not just his knowledge and his connections, but, a group of people that really support, him and understand what he's capable of doing. And so between, my connections and his, we were able to put together a pretty solid advisory board that's continuing to grow. But, I encourage everyone to go to our website and read their bios. It would take us the entire interview here to go down their list and their accomplishments. So it's truly, a pleasure to be working with and to have the guidance from guys that have done and accomplished what they have accomplished.
That's awesome. And if you guys have a chance, check it out, ecitmotors.com. It's a real nice website. And now, Gene, I got to ask you that you have conducted international business in Germany, Italy, England, France, Poland, Mexico, and you've led design and product development teams and prototyping for automobile manufacturers such as Porsche, Mercedes, Lexus, Ford, Hyundai, and others. Talk to us about the work you've done and what value it brings specifically to eSight.
Well, we've done, we have done quite a bit of work all over the world, like you just said, for quite a few companies, and it's all been great and a lot of fun. We've done everything from prototype builds to engineering and design of vehicles through prototype build, low volume production. We've built a lot of show cars that you'll see at all the auto shows, whatever LA Auto Show, Detroit Auto Show, New York Auto Show. And we built the cars that were up on the stage that they see. Those are all through contract, through Lexus or whoever else not. Hyundai, we built those cars. We've done quite a bit. Spent 8 years in Europe working in Germany, working for Porsche Engineering for about 6 years, and worked for Opel for a couple of years over there, doing different things. Again, some low volume stuff and some prototyping and different things like that, and learned a lot and had a great time.
All right. Well, while working with those big names that I mentioned, do you have a specific project that was your absolute favorite? Something that comes to mind that that was my favorite project.
I'd have to go back to actually when I was working over in Germany. I worked on a project that I led, which was a Mercedes 300E Cabrio. So it was a convertible 300E. We took the 300E and turned it into a convertible, and I led that development team. So we did all the design, all the engineering, all the drawings and everything, and then we took it right into the low volume prototype builds, and then right into the production through some other companies that did that. And I enjoyed that so much because it actually took me away from the actual design and engineering that I was doing previously in my life, because this was back in like the early 90s, right? So I was doing more production type cookie cutter stuff with General Motors and other companies. And this actually got me into the prototyping and the low volume builds and stuff like this. And it was, I realized that was really my passion. And so I have to say that was probably my favorite project at that time.
That's cool. And you mentioned low volume builds. Could you just explain real quick what that means for the average person that doesn't understand what low volume
Okay.
build means?
Yeah. Well, your car companies, GM, Ford, Chrysler, Mercedes, whoever you want to talk about, which there's no Chrysler anymore, so we'll just ignore that. But anyhow, they build hundreds of thousands of cars a year. Each model, hundreds of thousands of each model car. Low volume is anything over, well, there's really not a low number, but I consider it anything over 25 cars a year would be a low volume production. And you get that up until you get 1,000 cars or something in that range. Probably up to 10,000 cars is still considered low volume. Instead of using a standard assembly line like the OEs would use, OEs are original equipment manufacturers such as GM and stuff, you would build more by hand or a slight modification to a line, but it's more by hand type of build. It's more like how Lamborghini builds a car or how Aston Martin builds a car, because they're a lot lower volume than the high volume OEs. So that's really what it is. And that's what we are focused on today with eSight is low volume builds, because we're building cars of the past that are iconic vehicles that everyone desires to have or at one time in their life wanted to have. And we're bringing those back with a little spin of our own design onto that car to make it look more stylish for today, but also safer for today. And it's a more technology as of today versus what it had in 1970 or whatever when that vehicle came out.
Excellent. And as I was looking in you guys, I was really impressed, with just your backgrounds. It's absolutely so cool. And I got to say, now you've done work for a big screen. I found this to be so cool. The Lexus, that 2054 driven in Minority Report, the transforming taxis in Taxi, the fighter ships in Battlestar Galactica, the Batmobile in Batman and Robin, and the Terminator's bodies in Terminator 3. I mean, that must have been so darn cool. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Okay, well, we had the concept car studio, so we built show cars for the OEs. That's very cyclical type of work. So you build for maybe 6 or 8 months out of the year, and then you're dead for 3 or 4 months out of the year taking these contracts on. So we were diversified into art type of work, which would be some of your art statues and stuff like that, and then also the movie industry. Movie industry is a very tough industry, though. It's very competitive. And so your prices are down low. They don't want to pay the big bucks because, of course, they got all kinds of people bidding it. So they're going to take the lower price. And so it's a very tough one. So I can't really say those projects are fun because you got to run it with the whip and the cane and deal with your people to keep your prices in line. But to see your product when you finish on the big screen, that's the fun part, right? When you actually see your finished product and it's up on the big screen. We've done statues down on Rodeo Drive. There's an aluminum statue of a torso of a woman that's right in front of Yves Saint Laurent. That's something you see whenever you see a movie about Beverly Hills or something like that. They always start with that statue and then pan out and then show Rodeo Drive. And that's kind of cool to see that all the time. So yeah, that's how we did that type of work. But like I said, doing the actual job isn't as fun as you think. You do vehicles. They ask for one vehicle that is something that they use for close-up shots with the stars and stuff when they're being interviewed and stuff, that they can stand by the car. And then they'll ask you for a 20-foot vehicle where the camera's 20 foot away and the vehicle just looks like it's supposed to be. And they'll ask for a 40-foot vehicle, which is probably going to be going down the road or maybe exploding or get into a crash or something like that. So you build multiple vehicles that look similar to each other, but they aren't quite perfect, like in the show car business where we build cars for the OEs, right? So it's not as fun, but it is fun to see yourself on the big screen.
Yeah, that must be very rewarding to see that, especially when you put in all that work. If you had one, I'm going to ask this, of course. If you had one Hollywood project that you worked on that you were like, that was the one, I absolutely love seeing that project out there, love seeing that on the big screen, which one would it be?
Well, the one I have to say is probably the one I like the most is actually the vehicle I created myself, which is the 789, which is the likeness of a 57, a 58, and a 59 Chevy, and it was built on a new Corvette chassis. We had that in a movie called Crash and Burn, and where that was so much fun is the movie Crash and Burn was kind of a similar movie to Gone in 60 Seconds. And the 789 was the Eleanor of that movie. So the 789 was the car they desired to have and they went after to have. And the car was in the Peterson Museum. And they had to figure out how to steal that car from the Peterson Museum and get it on the road for their client. And we had to supply parts of the car. We had to supply a chassis that was just all stripped down without the body on it. And then we had to supply a car that was fully bodied that was actually drivable. And that was a lot of fun because the only way they could get it out of the building was to take the car apart and take it down on the elevator and then reassemble it back in their place to sell it to their customer. And it was kind of cool. We got to be on the set and watch them filming it and all that. So that was probably the most fun out of all of them.
Wow. What was the title of that movie? Was it Crash and Burn?
Crash and Burn, yeah.
It's a good watch.
Cool, guys. Yeah. Check that out. And I do got to ask you were involved in the Nicka hydrogen hybrid semi-truck, correct? And tell us what that was like.
Okay, yeah, that was actually a good project. Now we were involved with Nicka held control over the hydrogen portion and the electric portion, so all the chassis and the drivetrain. And we were contracted to build the entire body, all the glass, all the mirrors, all the chrome works, all the outside looks of the vehicle, and the interior, dash, all the interior, the beds, everything in there for the interior. And we were pretty at open design on what we were doing on the interior. Exterior, we were supplied a styling drawing, so some sketches and CAD data, what they wanted it to look like or similar to. That was a lot of fun and a lot of thinking out of the box type of thing, because we weren't into prototyping semi trucks. You know, these are big vehicles, right? So we didn't have a paint booth big enough to paint it. We had to make a makeshift paint booth, but you have to have quality paint job because it's a show vehicle. It's going to be up on a stage under a gazillion lights, and you know, it's really going to show off, and you don't want to look bad. So, well, we had to makeshift everything we did, and including shipping it. We did our entire build in Southern California, and Nicka was in Utah at the time. And we had to get our body and our interior that was all together, that never saw the chassis before at this time, and get it shipped up to Utah, and then go meet up in Utah with a team of guys and attach this body to the chassis and make it function, right? So that was a lot of fun too, because you got a 13 foot 6 truck, and you got bridges that are only 14 foot, 14.3, and it's got to pass through, but it's got to be on a truck to pass through, right? So you got low boy trucks, and we had to design a fixture to hold the body, to keep it low, and to fit under all the bridges on the way there. So it was quite involved, and we got involved with a lot of work that wasn't normally done in our type of business. So it was definitely a very fun project.
The intricacies, it's just crazy when you think about it, traveling all that way, teams upon teams working with each other. That takes a lot. It takes a lot of teamwork, and you guys all literally have to be on the same page.
Yeah, and I think it was the first carbon fiber truck, so it was all carbon fiber, the entire body. It only had one sliding door on the truck, and it had a push-out roof glass panel in case there was a rollover or anything, and all that was very unique and advanced in its time, and we developed that for Nicka, and it was cool. It was a good project.
Great. All right, let's talk investing. I know a lot of the viewers are here because they are investors. And guys, remember, this is not financial advice. This is just us sharing our passion, talking business. So you guys recently launched an investment portal. Now, it has since expired for those common membership units. Now, you guys exceeded the target offering in just 2 weeks. Very impressive. Tell us the purpose of the portal and how the funds will impact ECITE.
Okay. So first of all, the portal itself, which is at investinecite.com, is not closed. We did close on our first round of it and took a break, if you will. But that is still currently open. We do plan on adjusting terms as we move forward, obviously, but the original terms are still available to investors now. One of the things that's most important about that is twofold. One, we're able to bring capital into the company, directly into the company, that can be used for the purposes of getting production going and building the Carb Certification, the other types of engineering we're doing on the truck, and all those kind of things. So that money comes directly into the company. When you just buy and sell stock in the market, of course, the shareholders can get profits. They can have at-risk capital. They can lose. They can do whatever happens as the market dictates. But that money doesn't flow to the company and help the company directly. It just doesn't. When you go to the Reg CF and you put money into there, that money comes into the company and is used directly to further the business of the company. So that's why it's been, I guess, primarily useful to us. But the other thing that's equally, if not even more important, is that in doing so, because ECITE itself is a privately held company that is effectively owned, the vast majority of it, by VAPR brands, we don't have to do any dilution to the public side of things to bring capital directly to the company. And that's really what the intent of it was to create abilities for people to participate in the ownership, direct ownership in the company and in ECITE and in our vision over there, without having to dilute or tap on the market side of things in order to do so. Obviously, when you're new and you're going out and you haven't had the success that we've had with our certification, with the throughout all the processes here, then you take capital where you can get it. But as the company's maturing and growing, we're now able to take capital that's far more favorable to the shareholders and has a much more direct impact on the company. And that's really what the purpose of that has been.
Yeah, that's a good answer. And we know that the OTC is typically dilution boulevard, and so the fact that you guys are trying to avoid that, and you have that private entity within Vapor Brands, that provides itself useful. So that's good. Um, but oftentimes, companies dilute with no indications on return value. They just dilute to high hell. They're set, their shares being added, and you don't really know where the value is going. As orders increase, which I think they will for you guys, because it seems like you guys have a great plan, you're executing appropriately. Do you think you plan on keeping this same share structure, keeping it as tight as possible as you guys grow?
One of the most important things, period, in any business deal you do, especially when you're involved in public, is you have to maintain your share structure. I mean, good structure can save a mediocre deal, and bad structure can kill the best deal. So it's something that we're very, very passionate about. Let's be really clear here. I'm the largest shareholder in the company. Gene's one of the very much largest shareholders in the company. Both of our shares are fully restricted. We can't sell them. We don't sell them. We don't have any ability to sell them until we move the company, up from where it is now. We get to build cars. We love that. But as far as any exit, our exit is based upon the share structure and how well we've been able to maintain that. So we're all aligned with the shareholders to create the greatest overall value and to keep the share structure as tight as we possibly can. Again, one of the reasons for doing the Reg CF financing was to create capital without having to lean on the on the stock in any way, shape, or form, or to push our very loyal shareholders to put money directly into the company.
All right, and you did mention a bit ago. You mentioned CARB, the California Air Resources Board. You are going through the process to get certified to manufacture and sell in all 50 states. Talk to us about the importance of this certification as well as where you guys are in the process.
Okay, I'll take that one. The Carb Certification is, we did all our paperwork and all our process as far as our drawings and getting everything passed to the Low Volume Vehicle Act. And we have all that completed, and we are the first company to ever do so, especially with multiple vehicles. What we are currently at is we have to supply them the physical vehicle now that they can finalize all their testing. Like they get into all different things. One, just making sure everything's to code, making sure your batteries are, safe and fire safe, whatever like that. They make sure that they get your rating, your EPA rating, such as, how many miles you can get to your power and all of that. So this is some of the testing they will do from the physical vehicle. And we are in the process of completing that vehicle right now to get to CARB. Now, CARB guesstimates the time being about 90 days, but we are the first persons or first companies to get a car to them. So we're trying to work this thing together with them. So it's a learning curve for all of us. They've never really passed a low volume vehicle before. This law never existed, right? They came out with the law in 2015, but they've never even structured it to even work it until 2021 was the first application that came in. And I think ours was the second application, but the first one to be certified, right? So that first application was still pending, right? So we are at that process of the physical vehicle and getting that passed through CARB. We are pretty close to having that ready, but and as soon as that goes into CARB, we are going to start building our actual first production vehicle or our first saleable vehicle, and we're going to build that while they're still going through their process, so we can get that 3 months, 90 days jump on it, so our vehicle will be almost ready. One, because we believe in what we're doing, and two, we believe we are on track with what they need to do and what needs to happen to pass this vehicle. So I spent plenty of time. I spent a tenure at General Motors in the safety group and dealing with this stuff and dealing with these people. And so I learned quite a bit about it. So I think we're completing a vehicle that actually, will pass all their tests.
Yeah. I mean, they're a good group to work with, but then they openly admit when we say, well, what's that process going to look like? They're like, We don't know.
We haven't done this.
We don't know.
Yeah.
So it's kind of been a little tongue in cheek with them on that side of things, because we're doing it together and we're kind of figuring it out together. But they've been really good to work with, and we're both very committed to making sure that this process gets done, not just for us in our car, but then there becomes a process for other manufacturers that want to go through the process, or us again to go through with other vehicles, etc. So we're trying to create a template so that it can be duplicated in the future.
And they've been very helpful and very responsive to us. So that's the good part. So.
Yeah, we'll get there. They're, like I said, they're a good group of people, and we both have the same common goal. We just have to do something that hasn't been done before.
Exciting stuff, especially that you're first. So that's the mountain that you guys got to climb. And hey, you're doing it for all the people that will come after. They'll have it a smooth process at that point. So
well, I don't know how smooth it'll be better than ours.
Yeah, so we'll talk to us about the vehicles that ECITE is going to be offering initially. Talk about their design, the specifications, and why these vehicles will be distinguished from the rest of the EV world.
We're starting out. We're going to build 3 vehicles that are all passed through CARB as far as design-wise. I'm going to talk about the first 2 of those vehicles because they are currently in build. One is the GT, which is our first vehicle, and it's a 2-seat sports car. Rear-wheel drive, electric drivetrain. It will be a 2-seat Targa vehicle, so it will have a removable top, so you can get that wind in your hair, right? So, and that will be a little sports car that's really cool. It'll have 300 horsepower in the base model, the GT, and the GTS will be up over 450 horsepower. It's a iconic vehicle from the 70s styling. Second vehicle is going to be a truck, and the truck will be all-wheel drive, and will have between 600 and 1,000 horsepower, and all-wheel drive, like I said. It'll be off-road and on-road capability. I have a boulevard cruising type control, and it'll also have off-road control. The off-road vehicle is being built, or the chassis is being designed to be more like a Baja type vehicle off-road, but the suspension, well, you have an option for the off-road suspension or the boulevard cruiser suspension, but the chassis will already be durable and off-road ready. So that's the way that vehicle is being designed. Our GT vehicle is an all-aluminum chassis that's proprietary to our company, to ECITE here. It's our own development, and it is using today's technology. It is not your standard skateboard chassis that everyone's going after right now. On our type of designs, to do a skateboard chassis, you have to sit a lot higher. That's why most of your vehicles that are EV vehicles are more bubble shape. So this is one of the reasons why our vehicles are different than others. Plus we're using iconic classic designs from the past, which is part of the Low Volume Vehicle Act. It has to be 25 years or older or resemble a vehicle from the past. And resemble is the key word, because we want to resemble something. We want you to be able to look at that car and say, man, that looks like a whatever, 1969 Camaro, if you're taking today's Camaros, right? Yeah, so you get that idea behind it. So there are clauses in the law that we have to stay within, parameters that we have to stay within, and we are doing that. But those are things that make our vehicle different than your Teslas and your other electric vehicles out there.
Yeah. Although our vehicles are going to be, they're practical to drive. You don't have a lot of maintenance with them. They're going to be cost effective, obviously all electric, etc. All the benefits that you get of a typical EV. That's not the target we're going for. Our cars are cars that need to physically be driven by a human being because they want to drive a car. They want to drive a car that accelerates, that corners, that gets their blood pumping. It's an enthusiast car. It's although practical, it's not intended to be a commuter, although it could be commuted, but that's not its primary purpose. And definitely the GT is not one that a soccer mom is going to cart her kids around.
1 for being a 2-seater, 2 for having a lot of power, and 3 for being just really cool looking, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the pictures. I mean, looks amazing. It really does. And you mentioned driverless cars. I would not want to get in a car that does not have a driver in it. We've already seen, accidents, and these things could backfire.
Right. I
So
think there's a market for it, certainly. I mean, there are people that want to do that, and there's a lot of applications, and I'm amazed with the technology and the developments in it. But again, our particular cars are intended to bring back that driving for the pure excitement and experience of driving.
right on, man. Right on. I wanted to close with three questions that OTC traders and investors have. Um, and I'd like to ask these questions to everybody that comes on the channel. Question one. All right. Will you be reverse splitting the stock in the next 12 months? Or if liquidity is available, would you consider buying back shares so common shares aren't affected?
Okay, first of all, absolutely no no thought whatsoever of doing any kind of a reverse foreseeable in the future, really at any time, and certainly not given where we're at. One, there's no real reason for it. We have adequate capital in our structure for acquisitions and or for capital raises or other things that that might cause somebody to do a reverse. And again, myself and Gene are in the same boat with the shareholders, so any reverse to them is a reverse to us as well. And although there may be some instances where that is a positive thing for a company or for investors, we don't foresee any of that stuff, playing with what we're doing. So I guess absolutely no on the reverse. On the buyback, I would personally, I would love to get as many shares of the company as I possibly can get a hold of. The company itself, utilizing its capital to buy back shares, would be a secondary thing to actually building the cars.
Yep.
In a perfect world where you have all the money in the world, that might be a possibility, but the practical reality of it is we want to build these cars. We don't have a problem selling them. What we need to do is get them produced.
Excellent. Yeah. Question number two. Do you plan on uplisting at some point to the NASDAQ or perhaps the New York Stock Exchange?
Okay. As companies grow, then, like a child, they grow up. And essentially what you're referring to is the company growing out of, the OTC markets and moving into a senior exchange. So the direct answer is absolutely we plan on getting our audited financials, becoming fully reporting, and moving up and growing as a company and moving to a senior exchange.
Perfect. Question number three. Are you planning to apply for a name and ticker change? And if so, what is the timeline for that? Even though we know the FINRA process is very tedious and time consuming.
Okay, so we actually have, and quite some time ago, applied for a name and ticker change to Innovative EV Technologies is the new name. It's been recognized at the state. It's been something we've been operating under as a name, but as you just mentioned, in the world of FINRA, they are their own animal. And we've gone through the process back and forth with them with comments and answered them and so forth. And there are some things that they're looking for, some ancient documents from the pyramid days, and we're working on a workaround with them. So the answer directly is we already have applied for it. We're in the process of working through with them on what we have to do to get that final approval, which case the ticker symbol would go effective, etc. But our highest priority right now is building the cars.
Yes, and Innovative EV Technologies is a name change for VAPR, or for VAPR brands. It'll always be ECITE Group, so it's going to stay ECITE Group, which is owned by Innovative EV Technologies or VAPR Brand International.
Right on. Yeah, that FINRA process is very tedious, and I've had a lot of CEOs and companies come on where they fill out the paperwork, and sometimes they have to get filings from like 20 years ago before they even own the company, and it's sort of ridiculous, and they really do need to make the process just a little bit easier. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, some sense of reasonableness would be nice.
yeah, right. Guys, thank you so much for coming on. Final thoughts you'd like to share with your investors. Gene, let's start with you.
Yeah, we're open for investments always. We're looking for people that want to be involved with our company. we feel we are at the brink of, let's call it a new niche market here, going after these low volume vehicles that are iconic of yesteryear. And I think it's really unique and something that people should be very excited about being involved with, and get some shares of this while we're still in the growth pattern.
Right on. Barry, final thoughts.
Okay. First of all, the shareholders, thank you. One, for supporting us throughout all of this process that we've been, and even more directly to the shareholders that have reached out, primarily, to me directly, and have been able to have dialogue with me. The great Barry, as you mentioned, et cetera, or Barry the Great, I guess. Yeah, sorry, my mistake, which is not me. But and others, and there's a lot of groups of people that talk through people, and I really encourage that. Reach out. You guys have my number, you have email addresses, and we'll be as responsive and forthright as we possibly can be. And if we can't tell you something, we'll just tell you, hey, that's not something I can tell you right now for whatever reason. But we're not going to be evasive. We're not going to, walk any lines. We're going to do the best we can to communicate. And I've really appreciated a lot of the suggestions that we've had, feedback on our website, feedback on the designs, putting us together here, with you today. It obviously came from shareholders and them reaching out, trying to participate in helping the company and in helping their investment. So thank you is what I guess I'd say to all the shareholders.
That's awesome. I got to say, I'm glad that this company was brought to my attention. I wish you guys all the success. I'm going to be following you. I'll probably be investing at some point. And congrats ahead of time for the success. And I look forward to seeing what you guys do, especially after you get that certification finished and whatnot. So thank you for coming on Buffalo Fireside Chats. Truly appreciated.
We appreciate it very much.
Thanks for having us.